Well, thank you all very much, and my warmest thanks for this invitation, and special thanks, of course, to Timothy and Claire Beardson, and to Tim for his generosity in sponsoring the Oxford China Scholarships and this lovely party. And he knows better than anyone how important it is to China and the world to open up higher education to Chinese students. His book, Stumbling Giant, which I'm very glad to see piled up outside the house, but the pile is rapidly diminishing, is obviously a very reflective and thoughtful and controversial contribution to the study of China, which has already received a lot of attention. And one wonders, will those predictions of a slowing economy, a stagnating technology, and a population facing social unrest be borne out? Or will China's younger generations, represented here, succeed in bringing about the changes that China needs, according to Tim's and other people's diagnoses? And I have great confidence that the Oxford China scholars will make a huge contribution to the future well-being of China. As principal of Somerville College, I share with the Oxford China Scholarship Fund a great sense of loss at the passing of your patron, Baroness Margaret Thatcher. She was, as most of you will know, an alumna of Somerville College, and I know she agreed with the objectives of this scheme, and based on her own personal experience, she believed profoundly in the difference that an Oxford education could make to a student's future. And she wrote to my college a long time ago from number 10 Downing Street, "If I hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here." She was a devoted alumna, and when we wrote to her about a year before her death to seek her approval for our scheme to establish postgraduate and undergraduate scholarships in her name, she was honoured and pleased. Perhaps she had in her mind the success of the China Scholarship Scheme. Margaret Thatcher and her tutor, Dorothy Hodgkin, were two particularly remarkable people, and I think I'd like to just dwell for a second on their relationship and the example of their relationship, which I hope is something that many of you will have found replicated in your own experience at Oxford. Margaret Thatcher was the first woman to become Prime Minister of this country, and so far the only one. Dorothy Hodgkin, her tutor in chemistry, was the first woman in this country to win a Nobel Prize, and so far the only one. They were, in terms of their political beliefs, at opposite ends of the spectrum, and yet they had a lifelong relationship. It lasted until Dorothy Hodgkin's death, and listened to each other always with mutual respect. Margaret Thatcher's friends have told me hilarious stories of how the Prime Minister would be nervous for days before her former tutor was coming to visit to bend her ear on multilateral nuclear disarmament. And when Dorothy Hodgkin appeared, Margaret Thatcher would sit very upright in her chair with her knees tight together and her hands in her lap, as though experiencing an Oxford tutorial. The important thing about this story is, of course, that the two women, both of them having reached the pinnacle of their respective careers, remained in touch with each other and listened to each other with great respect and I think even affection, despite all the other things that divided them in terms of their opinions. And my hope for Oxford's Chinese students is that all of you should experience similarly transformative academic relationships. Oxford's long connections with China, going back over centuries, betoken a great mutual respect for our respective cultures, our technological attainments, our science, and our important roles in world affairs. There are now more than 800 Chinese students at Oxford, a huge increase over a short period of time, and many more of Chinese descent who come from other parts of the world. There are about 140 academics, lecturers, professors, and researchers. Chinese students enrich the social and cultural fabric of the university in innumerable ways. Societies, celebrations. I spent a most enjoyable evening celebrating the Chinese New Year with a compere from Somerville a couple of years ago. Sports, not just badminton and ping pong. Somerville actually boasts a Chinese student who claims that she is the shortest basketball player in the world. So my admiration goes out to all of you who've shown the courage and the enterprise to come here. And I would just like to conclude with my very warmest good wishes for your future success, for the success of the scholarship scheme, and my great admiration for everybody who's involved in it. Thank you so much.